Joining me now for more former Georgia Congressman, retired U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, and host of the Doug Collins podcast, my man Doug Collins himself. All right, sir, you just heard the last conversation. To me, it's kind of like, all right, let's not convict anybody in the court of public opinion yet, but when you've got now 9 people involved in this whole thing, I think it's pretty safe to say he probably did it.
Well, obviously, by your last comment, Carl, we can actually prove you will not be part of the mainstream media because you don't go ahead and convict, without truth or anything else. And that's what we're seeing, from this part. Because if it was a Republican, it would be. This is bad, going down. Should there be resignation? Here's my question, though, Carl. What did they do with the suspicious activity report? Who investigated them after they were actually generated? This is the next step in this. Once the suspicious activity report is generated, what happened to the investigation? Was it shut down? Did they find anything? What is beyond the suspicious activity report, which I think is very vital, no matter what side of this you're on, to say, okay, if there was something here, are you investigating? If there was never investigated, then why not?
Well, actually, that's probably the greatest point I've heard all day on this thing, which is like, yes, these were generated to the tune of what they said was thousands of pages of documents. At some point, someone thought it was like, hey, guys, this is kind of a problem. Who knew what and when and who shut it down? And did they bury this thing next to the Ark of the Covenant in the back of a warehouse?
Well, and that is the question. And like I said, there's a lot of things that go on here. But what I've always heard is we have the suspicious activity report, but we don't have the results of it. You and I are both military. If you have a suspicious activity, think about this. You're out there guarding at your post. You have a suspicious activity. You send it up the line. Oh, that's great. It's a suspicious activity report. Let me put it over here in the drawer. That's not what you do with suspicious activity reports. So the question is, what did they do with them? I've not heard that. I've not heard it from Comer. I've not heard it from a Democrat member. I've not, have you seen the Democrats run forward and say, oh, this was fully investigated, no problems here? No. What was done with them, and why was it either not done? If it was done, where are those reports? And then let's take this thing to the next logical level.
Right, but Joe said none of it's true, so shouldn't we just take him at his word, Doug?
Well, I'm not sure Joe knew what the question was at that point, because honestly, and no offense here, but I mean, he looked completely blindsided by this family. And then he said, as you rightly pointed out, he said, no truth to it. Well, Joe, you don't even know what they're asking. I mean, they may have been asking you for ice cream and you just turned down a double scoop.
Right.
So what's the problem here? You got to understand what the question is. Going to him is not relevant, but this has been building for years. This is not something new. The question is, why has it gone on this far? And if it's completely legal, then we just all shut up and go home. Right. The problem is nobody's investigating it, and I think that's the bigger issue here.
Well, because obviously it's a waste of taxpayer dollars to investigate Democrats, Doug. Come on. I want to welcome in Director of Research with the Government Accountability Institute and the author of Compromised: How Money and Politics Drive FBI Corruption, Seamus Bruner. Seamus, I'll pose the same question to you that Doug mentioned. Joe Biden seemed kind of blindsided by this whole thing. Do you think he's sitting back in his head like, oh, I have enough cognizant ability to realize I might be in trouble?
Yeah, Joe Biden is the most dishonest politician, and that's saying something. The congressman, there's no disrespect to the congressman. But Joe Biden knows that anytime he's asked a question, I mean, I think he can almost tell the tone of the question, and he just immediately either changes the subject, denies it outright, and like the congressman said, he probably didn't even understand the question. He just says, oh, there's no basis to it. Time and time again, we have seen Joe Biden lie on this subject of his family's corrupt foreign business dealings. I mean, first he said that it was all a conspiracy theory. Then he said, well, I had no knowledge of it. Then he said, I never talked to my family about their business dealings. Ludicrous. Then he said, I never met with my family's business partners. That was a lie. But I mean, we've been through several iterations of these lies coming from Joe Biden.
Seamus, though, I got to ask the question, like, nobody at any, like, when you have China funding the Penn Biden Center to tunes of tens of millions of dollars, when you've got a guy who's made between $100,000 and $200,000 a year for his entire professional career, amassing beach houses, and, you could Google what his net worth is. It's between $5 and $20 million, depending on the source. So who knows there? But at no point did anybody be like, hey, raise my hand, stupid question, but how did he get all this money?
Yeah, well, I mean, it happens all the time, unfortunately, in Washington, and they often say the worst thing about Washington is not all the illegal activity, but it's all the legal activity. So he does this through book deals. You mentioned these academic ventures which totally reek of corruption with all the foreign money coming in. I mean, why is China why is the Chinese government sending millions of dollars to the University of Delaware? It's not like it's Harvard, with all due respect to Delaware.
But Harvard, never heard of it. Must be a small school. But Doug, if I was selling finger paintings for $500,000, wouldn't that be another thing that, like, hey, Carl's not an artist?
Yeah, Carl would have to, but Harvard's not in the SEC, so why worry about it? We worry about this. Look, painting. I mean, it just reeks of bad. Okay, I mean, granted, okay, maybe he's the next, Picasso, but does it happen to also occur while all of these pictures came out with him with drugs, with him with prostitutes, with him with a gun that, by the way, I've still not understood why there's not been a charge with his lying about buying a firearm. Again, I'm sorry, maybe we just missed that part. But as we go along here, but all of a sudden he becomes an artist. He is now Churchill in a wartime setting, and we're going to pay lots of money for this, and nobody knows where it's at. I mean, this is a skit that just keeps going. SNL, if they would actually get to real funny again, this would be a good one.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Chappelle to do some rendition on this. Doug Collins, Seamus Bruner, we appreciate you as always.